Okay, time is up. We should get started. Hello everyone. Welcome to join today's webinar. This is Yuqing speaking here. I'm today's presenter, presenting you a webinar. Our topic for today is secrets to seamless panorama on QooCam. But you should know that our technology, our tricks could apply to all the cameras on the tricks. Apply all the cameras. And before we get started, many thanks for the Candle team for make this webinar happen again, because this is our second webinar focused on virtual reality photography. And today we're going to dive deeper into the secrets behind the VR photography. And it's also a great pleasure to have all of you from all over the world to join this webinar. It's really a great pleasure for me to share my webinar with all of you. So today our topic is secrets to seamless panorama on QooCam. And in the last webinar, we have introduced several computational photography tricks. People say that they are like magic, but today we are going to unleash another magic, because today's webinar is about another magic. So you should listen carefully, and I bet you will definitely improve yourself on the virtual reality photography based on the skill you will get today. Before we get started, I will give a brief introduction once again for myself. I'm Yuqing Guo. I'm from Beijing, China. I'm a panorama hobbyist since 2009. I was shooting with DSLR for Panorama, and I'm currently a computational photography lover, and I have ever won the 2018 Epson Panel Award Silver winner in the session of VR 360. So for those of you if you're not familiar with me, so this is a brief introduction of myself, and I hope to keep posting great photos and share with all of you, share the happiness and share the great photos so that we can improve together, right? And today's agenda, I would teach you another magic today. So before we dive deep into the magic, we should get to know some background knowledge. And because we will focus on QooCam today, so QooCam and its secret capabilities, I should introduce you once again, and some urgent needs in VR photography. And most of all, I will show the complete workflow behind the perfect seamless panorama scenes, right? So let's get started with some excellent panorama shoot on QooCam. We should always see the photos first, right? So I will show you a series of QooCam panoramas. I called it the QooCam purgatory. It's like some impossible panoramas shoot in extreme situations. It's like cold, fire, dark, ice, hot, and everything that is every situation that seems impossible, but I have ever tried and succeed in taking very interesting panoramas. So if you are watching this on a cell phone, you can type in the link in your PC or Mac, and you can see the whole photos. But now I will switch back to my PC and share with some of the interesting photos with you, right? Here, now I switch back to this, and I will open this in the browser, and let us enjoy this very much. Okay, and here, and we will go to some. This one was shoot. I shot this panorama in a super tiny space with Canon QooCam, and this one was shot without any stitching errors, and it's crystal clear and sharp from near to the infinity, right? And this one will be the example, and I will show the complete workflow behind this photo. So apart from this one, I also have this one And you know, in spring was coming, and I shot the flowers at super close on at the same time without any stitching errors, and I got a very good light condition, and I shot this photo of flowers at the very best moment of the day. So you can get this shot after this webinar, definitely, with all the skills you learned, all the possibilities in your photography, right? And also, a few days ago, I posted this photo on the Facebook group, and this one was shot in a super hot situation. You can see here, it will be over 300 degrees, and with some delicious, like you can treat like a pizza, but in China we don't call it a pizza, we call it something else. But this was super hot, and in this very extreme situation, we also got very good dynamic range, and at the same time, there's no stitching errors, right? So this was very interesting. And also, we can have, if you could get rid of the stitching line, you can even shot in every situation that will be crowded, such as this one. I shot this in the subway, in the metro, so that people are crowded, but I shot this panorama, and there's no stitching line, and with all at the same time with very good dynamic range. And yes, and you can do this after this webinar. And a good news is that I will share all of the photos with you at the original resolution after this webinar. So watch out your email box, or I will share with all of the materials behind the scenes with you. So you can get to know all the interesting panoramas by yourself. But today, the time is limited. I will not take you go through all the 10 panoramas. Okay, so back to the keynote. Okay, and now we can jump to the next chapter. In this chapter, before we dive deep into the magic, you should know some background knowledge behind the VR photography or panoramic photography. So this is what we're going to learn in this chapter. And for most of you, you have such tiny 360 cameras. You got to know what on earth a 360 cameras is producing for you. And all the cameras, all the photos and videos in 360, they will apply the equirectangular projection by default. So what is equirectangular projection, right? Equirectangular projection is just like illustrating a 3D world in a 2D space. It's kind of like a mathematical projection. And in this world map, you can see the thin red line here is the equator, and in panoramic photography, this is the right. This is the horizontal line, right? You should always put your horizontal line straight, and that is exactly what the stabilization algorithm will help you to achieve the goal, right? And to give you more impression of the equirectangular projection, such as this example, every circle in this photo, they are all the same in the 3D space. But when you reproject with equirectangular projection in the 2D world, it will look like this. So some of the shape we got warped. That's it looks like weird. But this photo will give you a basic impression of the right. Will give you a basic. Also, it's very difficult to watch the video stuttering. Yeah. Well, the buffering, right? Yes, and this one will give you a basic impression of the equirectangular projection. So every circle will look like it's something like weird, especially on the zenith and the nadir. So that's why every time you look at the equirectangular panorama photos, you will feel like it warped, right? But when you go to know the equirectangular projection, you got everything right. And when you watch this on Facebook with immersive experience, and that is what on earth what a tiny little camera is producing for you, right? And you know, for most of the 360 cameras, they have dual fisheye lens, such as this one, for 360 with this lens and this lens. So every single fisheye image, they will got warped into the equirectangular projection during stitching. And what happening during the fisheye warping is very important. Now here, in PT Grip Pro 11, I have a small video clip for you to give you an impression. So for the single fisheye image, what a single fisheye image will look like in the equirectangular projection plane. And so the single fisheye image will have different point of view, and different point of view. It depends on your camera orientation. If orientation like this, or even like this, right? So it depends on your orientation, right? And the fisheye de-warping is correlated with orientation. So every shot, the single fisheye image will not look exactly the same. So for most of the case, when you shoot a panorama, the single fisheye lens will look like this and this. It will combine the two fisheye images together. You will have this result. And in this result, if you take a closer look at the detail, you will see there are stitching lines. So if you want to shot in super tiny little space, you will definitely come across with lots of stitching errors. So how to get rid of the stitching errors is a center topic for today. And there are some tricks. You can see the stitching errors, right? And there's another one. Here's another one for the flowers, right? The image will look different from the last one because the camera have different orientations. And when you blend them the two images together, you will have the stitching line, right? So the next one we talk about the overlapping. The overlapping is a key point to the perfect stitching. So when we are taking a normal panoramic photos, the imaging sequence have overlapping between imaging pairs. And when you are finding with the help of the stitching algorithms, the algorithm will help you generate control points from the imaging pairs. And that's why your image could be stitched together and to form a straight panorama photos, right? Okay, so with fisheye de-warping, with equirectangular projection and overlapping, if you overcome all the problem, all the stitching errors, finally you will have this perfect immersive experience for photo or for video, right? So in my opinion, my rules for the perfect immersive experience is like got to be the perfect stitching, the perfect nadir, the perfect zenith, and you also have to get the invisible selfie stick. And at the same time, you got to have seamless stitching. No camera, no photographer, no shadow. So everything is gone. That is, will deliver your audience the perfect immersive experience. So that is my rules for the perfect immersive experience for photo, right? And next topic before we dive deep into the magic, I would like to share some of the QooCam and its secret capabilities. And I think that most of the camera reviews, they are not aware of the QooCam's secret capabilities. That will make QooCam be almost the best choice to shooting in the super tiny little space. And here is some design specs. I will go through it very quickly. For the QooCam, they have a very small sensor and a very giant field of view. So with a relatively a big aperture, but at the same time, the QooCam, this camera will have the biggest depth of view among all of its kinds. Besides, it has a giant battery and a full matte body. You know, full matte body will make this camera very capable of shooting in a very extreme situation, right? And you know, this camera have very giant field of view, and so this blind area you can see this red triangle. It's the blind area. So the QooCam has the least stitching errors, while at the same time this camera has the biggest overlapping. So that will make this camera perfect to shoot in super tiny little space, right? And next, how to understand, how do we think of the overlapping area? So the overlapping area, you can see the original triangle. So every object within the overlapping area will be shot twice, right? Will be shot twice in the overlapping area. But you should be careful. So you should never put objects too close so that your object will dive deep into the blind area. So they will not be captured by this camera. But every object within the orange circle, orange triangle, they will be shot twice. So that is exactly the secret, that you can take advantage of these overlapping areas to get rid of the stitching line. So that is all the basis of our trick. This is a good example for the dual fisheye lenses. Watch out the highlight area. So the highlight area is the overlapping areas. So every object within the highlight areas will be shot twice. So this one, you can see the overlapping area will differ from each other, depend on the orientation, right? This will differ from the orientation. And this one, right? But you know that the QooCam has the giant FOV and the biggest overlapping area. So this overlapping area is the biggest among all of its kind. So that's why the QooCam could shot in super tiny little space, while at the same time get rid of stitching errors. Okay. So next, some of the killer features, and very many of the reviewers have all told you, is that for the Canon QooCam, it has the DNG8 mode, Canon RAW Plus, and the super resolution. And these three killer features are mentioned in our last webinar. So you can turn to the last webinar to get to know what is a killer feature and how to use them in your shooting, right? And because the QooCam and its secret capabilities, so that will make the QooCam nourish the one-shot VR photography. So it will make the super tiny space VR shooting possible, and it will take a crystal clear photo in focus through all the depths of field. And at the same time, with the help of its killer features, it will generate high imaging quality workflow, as we have mentioned in our last webinar. Because it has a full matte body, so this camera will survive even in extreme situations, right? This is insane. And in VR photography, there are many urgent needs, and that our photographers, we have very urgent needs to make us to shot better photos in VR photography. So So one of the great features and the Canon QooCam just released today is the unstitched panel. And it just released today with the latest version of QooCam Studio, right? The unstitched panel. What is unstitched panel? In fact, it is a separated dual fisheye warped imaging output. Separated dual fisheye warped images output. So why should the Canon QooCam do this instead of photographer? You know, we have PT GUI. We can generate the unstitched panel by ourselves. But why should the camera manufacturer do this instead of for the photographer? Because if the QooCam Studio have this function built in, it has a perfect alignment with the stitch panel. Because it has perfect alignment, so that will make your post-processing immersive, very effective. And in this case, you can make full use of the overlapping information, as we mentioned before. This very big overlapping areas. And with the help of Photoshop masking skill, you can masking out the stitching errors very easy. And also, you can make some nadir patch with extra tripod remove, and ultimately, you can achieve the perfect immersive experience by yourself. That's very important. And how to perform unstitched panel in the latest version of QooCam Studio. Now, here I have a video guide for you, and I also have a complete workflow, and we will show you how to enable the unstitched panel feature in the QooCam Studio. You know, in the QooCam Studio, you have the unstitched panel options. You can click on and off. If you click on, if you set to the on, then you can output the unstitched panel as separated layers that you can stack in Photoshop by yourself. So that is the how to do the unstitched panel, right? Here's a short video clip. You can see that, and after some minor tuning on the QooCam Studio, you can choose color correction back and forth to choose the best effect, and then you can choose the unstitched panel on and off. In this case, when you select the unstitched panel feature as on and click on the render selected, you will have the unstitched panel output for you. That's very easy in the QooCam Studio. There's the next one, so it will show you what the unstitched panel will look like after the unstitched panel output, right? So they will like, as we mentioned before, it's separated dual fisheye image output for you, so that you can stack them in Photoshop and masking out the stitching line by yourself. And now I am going to switch back to my computer to show you the complete workflow behind the scenes. You have already seen in the QooCam Pocketry. This one was called the tiny perfect camera, the shot inside the refrigerators. That I will give you a complete workflow behind the scenes. So now let's switch back to my PC, and you can see all the tricks behind the scenes. Let's get started, right? Okay, so here I have some source files at unstitched panel, and you will open up the latest version of QooCam Studio, and now you have this one. And in edit, watch out that this image has TIFF and TIF and TIFF. So in the latest QooCam Studio, finally we have support drag and drop for the TIFF files. So you can put on this, and now you can you can see this feature is like something you will have by default, but this one we have the horizontal line is not that good. You see, so we can fine-tuning with our mouse, or we can fine-tuning with adjustment sliders, right, back and forth. And the color corrections now is on by default. In this case, I think if you put color correction on, it will be perfect for this situation. And after some fine-tuning, you can see the stitching line in the preview image. You can see that the stitching line is here, right, behind the white bottle, and here you can see the stitching line that will ruin your photos. And it's better put the stitching line in the as a whole in the image, so that you can mask out in Photoshop with ease. And now we are fine-tuning the horizontal line, and we click on Add to Queue, right? Add to Queue. Now we click on the on-stitch panel as on. The resolution to 8K, format with PNG, so that we can get the highest imaging quality out from this image, right? And next we can click on Render All. So the QooCam Studio is now generating the highest definition photos, resolution photos for you with 8K, boosted by super resolution, and at the same time with on-stitch panel output. Oh yeah, it's complete. And now in the folder called the KD output, you have 3 files, right? You can see this is the automatically stitched panorama, and this one was the unstitched panel output. So now I have a small tricks for you. You can open the Adobe Bridge CC, and in this you can dive deep into the folder, and there's a trick. You can generate 3 layers in Photoshop automatically with the help of Adobe Bridge. Select all the 3 photos and click on Tools, Photoshop, and load files into Photoshop layers. Yes, and now this 3 image will be loaded to the Photoshop as separated layers, right? And here you can see that now we have three photos as separated layers. The image on the bottom was the stitched version, and automatically stitched by the QooCam Studio, and have many stitching arrows here and there. And on the top of the stitched result, we have the separated. This is on-stitch panel. It's separated dual fisheye images. I will help you to mask out with the mask. Now you can add the layer mask to the separated layers, right? And masking out the final result. But before we dive deep into the remove seamless panorama tricks, we should analyze the panorama so that we can see that where we should correct in this panorama. Here I have this new layers. We can use the pen tools to help you to recognize the stitching arrows, right? You can see the first arrows in here, and the second, and here we also have some stitching arrows. And later on, we can find that there is a very serious stitching errors. Also, this area and in this area, right? We have stitching errors along the stitching line, right? The stitching line is here. Along the stitching line, we have stitching errors. And you can see every object along the stitching line, they are not perfect at all. Here you can see that this is a stitching arrow, right? And also we have on the nadir we have the cameras on the nadir, so we should also get rid of the camera on the nadir. So apart from these stitching arrows, everything looks great. Everything looks great, right? So we are now going to get rid of the stitching arrows one by one. So first we can see that we should recover the white bottle. You can see that in this photo, in cam 1, you can see that cam 1 in this photo, you have everything. You have everything. You have the bottle as a whole. It has a. So we can use the mask, Photoshop mask, to mask it out from these separated layers. And you can see with the on-stage panel output, we have a precise alignment of the 3 layers. So you can directly mask on these layers, and you will get a perfect white bottle, like this. Like this. And choose this to mask out the bottle by yourself. Here, and click on slash. You can see the mask you are painting right now, right? Okay, so with very simple photography mask tricks, you are now get a perfect white bottle of the image, and with some fine tuning on the edges to recover the bottle by yourself. Okay, that's not very hard. That's not hard. Okay. And now we can see that we have already corrected. This area, right? But you can, if you look at this area, there's the optical flow artifacts. So we are going to get rid of through another layers. Here you can see this one was complete in this area. So we are going to recover it from this layer. And we will have, now we have a perfect right? Watch out at the top. You can see that these shadows also need to be fixed. Now we fix this, yeah. Right, and the white lines on the top is also got distorted by the optical stitch. We can also get rid of it with the help of Photoshop mask, right? And it's very easy. Let's float 100%. Okay. Never mind. Here we can have this. Yes, with this one. Now you have a perfect parallel white lines on the top. Here, now you have this one, it's perfect lines. Right? Here, now we have correct these areas. And this one is perfect now. And this one was nearly perfect, but watch out the red areas. We got to recover from another this area. And now we look to the left. We try to fix the image on the left. You can see that this green bottle was complete in this part. So we can paint also with some painting mask. We cover it from the Cam 1 layer. Now we can watch out. Okay, we cover all the okay, we cover all the bottles. It's perfect shape because they are perfect in this layer called Cam 1, right? And we also should fine-tuning the edges. Okay, with the mask. Okay. So now this green bottle is perfect with some fine tuning on the edges to make it more sharp. Okay, and now we can see that we have some optical flow stitching artifacts in these areas. So now we should take advantage of the Cam 0 layers to get rid of the patterns, right? Cam 0. Now in the bottles are all great right now. So in the Cam 0 layers, we open back and forth. You can see we can recover the color, the red areas on the zenith to recover on the zenith, so that we can have a perfect zenith on the top. We have a very fast tricks. We use the selection tools in Photoshop. Select tools in Photoshop, and we can make a simple and effective mask here, right? And now with this as your mask, you can have this one. Yes, and now we have a mask based on our selections on the top. So it will directly give us a perfect zenith part. A perfect zenith part. Okay, so it seems like we are online again. Okay, and now we have a perfect zenith. Fine-tuning on the edges. Fine-tuning the edges to make it more realistic. Okay, but we should get rid of this one here. Now we have almost a perfect zenith, but yeah, we still have some fine-tuning work to go. Yes, there's some fine-tuning here. Okay, now this one is perfect. And watch out in these areas. We now have some stitching artifacts. You can see that these white lines, they are not parallel, but in the real world they are parallel. You've got to recover from this layer to Cam 0, Cam 1 layers. So now with some also with layer mask, mask out the perfect part of each image, right? And you can also always click on slash to see what on earth what your mask look like. Okay. Yeah, so now you have correct almost all of the stitching errors. You can click with a bigger brush to correct all the. Yes, this is good. Now the white parallel lines all looks natural right now. And back to this layers, we should mask this out because we have a perfect zenith, right? Okay. And as we have analyzed before, there's also stitching errors here. If you look at closely at these areas, it's all optical flow artifacts. So on this layer, this part is perfect, right? You can mask it out. Oh, sorry. Press X, flip back the colors and mask it out this part perfectly. And at the same time, you can recover this area, right? Oh, it's perfect now. And you can also go directly to this to recover this part. And look closer to make fine-tuning on the edges. So this is perfect now. And we can also use the masking tools to help you to select the white areas, like on W, and help you to make a precise fine-tuning with the help of the mask. Sorry, here. Oops. Click on the mask and mask it out. Mask it out perfectly. Oh, this is nearly perfect. And fine-tuning the edges. Right? Okay. You get rid of the analyze effect. Right? And here, now we have almost a perfect panorama here. To see the before and after comparison. Oh, based on the analyzed we have made before, now we have everything, almost everything corrected. See that? This one is perfect. And this area is perfect now. Also, we have get rid of almost all of the arrows. Except, except this area. Except the nadir part. So for the nadir part, it will be a little bit tricky. We should take advantage of the latest feature of the Photoshop CC. But now if we take a closer look at this, we got this mistake. You should get rid of this by the sorry. Select on max, mask this out. Okay. right? And now if you take even closer look at the nadir part, you can see the stitching arrows lies here. So it also be fixed by our masking magic. So we use this layer to mask out this stitching arrows. Kind of like magic, but it's really happening, right? And also, because you got to know the warp in the equirectangular projections, you should also mask this part out. And now we have almost corrected all the stitching errors in Photoshop with the help of the unstitched panel, right? It's kind of like magic. And watch out in this area on the nadir. There's a black line. That is the camera itself. We should get rid of this part. So I will delete the analyze result and select the 3 layers and press Ctrl Alt Shift and E to merge to a new layer, right? And in the latest Adobe Photoshop, we have a new feature called click on 3D spherical panorama. The new panorama layers from selected layers. So now we have an interactive editing workspace. So I can reproject the equirectangular image to a immersive work panel, so that we can fine-tuning every angle we want in Photoshop directly. We don't have to jump back and forth to the other software. Now you can see that the only part we left is this area. It is the camera itself. So we can make selections right here with brush tools and right click layer via copy. So now we have extract the arrow directly into a new layer, so that we can apply all the tricks such as the patch tools, right? You can correct this area. And also we have some correct this area with patch tools, clone stamping tools, right? So that we are almost done. But be careful, you should always save your files in case of accident in the post-processing. And now we are almost done, right? We have almost get rid of all the stitching errors, but watch carefully that you can see on the white lines, you can see the shadow of the camera, because this area looks a little bit black, more black than this area. So that is the evidence of shadows of the camera. So you can use a burge and the dodging tools to get rid of the shadows of the dodge and burning, right? So for dodging tool, you can make it brighter, right? No, the dodge tool. For the dodge tool, you can make it brighter, right? And here, right? For the dodge tool, that you can make it brighter to get rid of the shadows. And you can click on merge down. You can merge this area directly into the panorama. And now when you are scrolling around, you can see that this part was corrected. Oh, but watch this. We lost this one. You can click on this again to get rid of this black spot with dodge and burning tools, right? Yeah, and this is nearly perfect. And the shortcut is Ctrl+E, merge down to this interactive layers. So now we have a perfect panorama. It's generated in the refrigerators, right? You can see the top, you can see the bottom. There's no stitching errors. but there is a small tricks. If you watch carefully, you can see on the yellow bottle there is a shadow of the Canon QooCam. So we better get rid of any shadows in the bottles. You can select this part and add to a new layers and get rid of the shadows with the help of content aware fill. The shortcut is Shift plus F5. Fill content aware. Now you can get rid of the shadows. And if you take a closer look at these areas, you can also have the shadows here. You can get rid of this directly with a patch tools. This is one patch tools. Okay, it's patch tools. Now we have get rid of the QooCam in the shadow. But you can see you should also make some more fine tuning to clone these areas directly to this, because it will make it look more realistic, right? Because and here, yeah, and now it is nearly perfect. Yeah. So merge down until you merge all the patches to this interactive work panel. So now this image will look almost perfect. Oh, we also have the shadow in this bottle. We should get rid of this bottle with content aware fill, right? Shift F5. Yes, and this area with patch tools to get rid of shadow, because there's shadow on the bottles, right? Here. Okay. Now we have get rid of all the shadows, details. Till now, we can say that finally we have a perfect panorama from top to the bottom, to the left to the right, and every corner, every detail of the panorama now it is perfect, right? It was generated with the latest feature of on-stage panel by the Canon QooCam, this Canon QooCam Studio. So to reproject again to the Equirectangular Projection, we can double-click on the spherical map, and now the temporary, the Photoshop will make an Equirectangular Projection for you, and you can duplicate the layers to the original PSD files, and now you can finally recover this perfect panel. Click on Save. Because we do not need this interactive layer anymore, we can delete this in case to save the PSD files as a smaller file, right? Now we save this. Yes, now we have get rid of all the stitching arrows. You can toggle on this eye before and after, right? Before and after. You can see the difference. So here, before and after, before and after. And these PSD files I will share with all of you in case you can manipulate by yourself to get a deeper understand of the feature called on-stage panel. So now, after that, finally we have a perfect panorama, so that we can apply all the levels, curves, hue saturation, sharpness, photo filter, everything in Photoshop you can apply to this photo to make it look much better, right? But this is not part of today's webinar. This is part of the photography post-processing tricks. So you can do whatever you want based on this perfect panorama, right? Generated from the Canon QooCam. Now we save this. So that is end of our workflow to how to get rid of the stitching lines, how to get rid of the stitching arrows. So back to the live. Oh, we are still here. We have switched back to our keynote and micro, so that Now we have already showed the complete workflow behind these perfect scenes, and I will share all of the material with you in case you can learn by yourself after this webinar is done. So I have already shown you, and before we dive into the deep flow, I should talk about the camera orientation. So a good camera orientation will give you an easy post-production, always give you easy post-production. You can see that in this case, I shot with this orientation. So the one of the lens towards the bottles, another towards the outside. If you overshooting at this orientation, that will make your post-production weird. It's weird. So a good camera orientation will help you get rid of the stitching line with ease. And this is the whole workflow I have already shown you during the process. Right? We generated the TIFF files to 3 separated images. One of them is the stitched version, and the other 2 is the unstitched panel. It's a separated fisheye output. Once we combine all this photo together, finally with the Photoshop mask tricks, we finally get a perfect result from this workflow, right? So let's jump out to the demo and give a brief summary of the workflow. So to make it as simple as follows, in the last webinar, we have shown you that in shooting DNG, full stack in RAW+, fine-tune this RAW and stitch tuning upload to Facebook. But today, after today's webinar, we can add 2 more steps in the workflow in case when you were shooting in super tiny space to get rid of all the stitching errors. It's like this, right? After the fine-tuning the raw files, we stitch in the QooCam Studio with unstitched panel output, and in Photoshop, you can mask out the stitching line in Photoshop with the photographic tricks. So this is the whole workflow for the super tiny space VR panoramic shooting, right? Here that there's no magic because I have shown all the post-processing steps for you on our last live demo, right? So apart from the classic workflow, we add 2 more steps. It's a stitch with unstitched panel output and masking out in Photoshop. And more tuning, active fixer, finally you can upload to Facebook, share with your friends with your excellent panoramic photos. So next, I'll give you some summary and prediction for the futures. Today I have shown you the secret of creating seamless panorama with the latest feature called unstitched panel. That is a separated dual fisheye warped image output. That was the new feature of Canon QooCam and the QooCam Studio. For the future, that you know we have spent quite a while on correcting the stitching line, but the computer algorithm could evolve dramatically in the future that to take fully advantage of the the material themselves to make photographers post-processing more efficiently, right? Such as we can apply dynamic blending, interactive stitching, adaptive stitching, and even the crafted stitching with GAN, with the generative adversarial network. That is the latest result of the artificial intelligence, right? And that's all for today's webinar. Next, we are going to have some questions and answers. And I have already seen some questions in the comments below, and I will answer your questions right now. Here I can go through the comments below. Here I have Lynn Frappier. Lynn Frappier have a question. How was the lenses oriented and was QooCam directly placed on the shelf? Yes, I think I have already shown the camera orientation in the slides, and you might have found it. You might have found it in the webinar, and I will share the webinar with you, right? Okay. And please leave your questions below, and I can answer. And yeah, so the first question, another question is that from Virtual, what can I use when I don't own a Photoshop? Yes, there are many post-processing software, and some of them are free. That one of the recommended is GIMP, GIMP. You can select, you can post-processing in GIMP. You have all the tricks. You can all the tricks in the GIMP. You can also apply the layer mask, the patch tools, everything you need in get rid of the stitching line. A second question is from the Richard Shoot. I'd also be interested in GIMP workflow. We would like to show you the GIMP workflow if possible in the future. It might look almost all the same, but you know, in GIMP the shortcut of the keyboard is different from Photoshop. So to get used to GIMP, you need a lot of practice. But we can consider to give you a webinar on the GIMP workflow in the future. That's a very good question. Yes. And the third question is from Lynn Frappier. How was the lenses orientated? I have already answered this question for Lynn Frappier. So that, where can I find KD raw? Virtual. Yeah, a KD raw is a high quality DNG files generated from the Canon Raw Plus. That's another software with combined with the DNG8 mode in the Canon QooCam. So if you where can I find KD raw? You got to use DNG8 and Canon Raw Plus in order to get KD raw file. Darren Lacy, never mind. You will never miss anything because I have a whole process. I have a high quality video recorder, so that I will upload later after this webinar. You can enjoy all the content on the YouTube or the other channels. Darren Lacy, did he show the Photoshop part? That's a new scene. Yep. That's what I mean. The fine-tuning KD raw DNG files. This is not a fine-tuning in KD raw, right? Okay, I will share all of the. Anthony Lim has a question. Can we use multiple orientation shot and stitch them in PT grid instead? It is possible. It is possible. But I've never tried because a camera like this, they have a giant field of view. So with 4 photos, you can stitch into a perfect panorama. But the process will be weird. You can try it by yourself. You'd better use the official software to do the stitching. And multiple orientation it is possible. It is possible, but the imaging warping is kind of like different. So you might not get a perfect panorama, but you can try yourself. I have ever tried it, but the result is not very optimizing. Yes, you are right. But for some situation, we only have one click. And if you were rotating the camera 180 degrees and slide a bit, it means that you treat this camera as a single fisheye lens camera. It is possible. You can refer to the very famous Russia, the QooCam. It's called Andrew Shemenko. Andrew Shemenko. He has a very good YouTube channel. You can see many great photos and videos captured in this style, 180 degree with a little bit shift. Yes, that's, you can find it. And so if I have a tripod and want to hide the tripod, which orientation should I shoot for my third shot? You don't need have to make there's no any other questions. I think it's time to end this webinar. And we can communicate with each other after this webinar. And I will provide all the materials for you to repeat my process.